Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for Monday, September the 12th, 2016. Here's a look at the Atlantic Basin, a good deal of it anyway. Newly formed Tropical Storm Ian out here in the open Atlantic, sheared due to southerly winds coming across the system. Very strong upper-level winds across this region. This system is lucky that it's formed at all. I'll show you that upper-level wind map in just a moment. Farther to the west, weak area of low pressure, showers and thunderstorms here approaching the peninsula. A little bit of energy here in the eastern and central Gulf, but none of this region looks like it's very favorable for development, so we can basically put a big X on this. No worries. We'll bring some scattered showers and thunderstorms to the offshore waters and eventually over Florida itself, but other than that, being the peak of the hurricane season, not much to worry about. This is the tracking map for Ian, forecast to go on out into the Atlantic and stay there, way up into the far reaches of the North Atlantic here by the weekend, so no problems for U.S. interests. In the Pacific, the eastern Pacific, we have Hurricane Orlene. This is where it is relative to everything else. The map is hard to figure out. Hey, where is that relative to land? Well, there's the Baja Peninsula, and there's Orlene down here, fairly strong hurricane. Going to move on out into the more stable air mass and cooler ocean temperature region of the eastern Pacific before too long, so no threat to Mexico. Water temperatures coming up again in the wake of Hermine that came off and stirred things up out here quite a bit. 29 degrees Celsius isotherm, nosing its way back up now, just off the North Carolina Outer Banks. So unless we get any major storm systems through here, it'll just take a few weeks for this to sort of cool off naturally as the sun angle and the overall energy input into the oceans goes down the closer to the end of the hurricane season that we get. But for now, the Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean, all fairly very warm in some cases. Look at that right up there. This is where Hermine made landfall, and you can see one little patch of green, and that represents the 30-degree isotherm. So anything in this green color, including this right here, 30 degrees Celsius, so that's about, what would you call that? Let's see, 26 Celsius is 79, so it's about 85, 86 degrees, something like that. Very warm, put it that way. But this is shallow water through this region here, so it's easy to cool off with something coming through to disturb it, and then it's easy to warm back up as long as the sun angle and the energy input into the ocean is still fairly substantial. So the wind shear, definitely problematic for development, great for coastal interests. Here's the east coast of the U.S. just to give you your bearings. All right, and then here's all this strong upper-level wind pattern ripping through the Atlantic right now, sort of this tropical upper tropospheric trough carved out. And then you have Ian sitting right over here in one little area of fairly decent upper-level divergence where the wind is spreading out, but it's real close to this machine of very strong winds aloft, and if it gets too close to that, it'll be sheared apart and won't be able to generate much. But most of the models indicate this will relax enough to allow Ian to strengthen a little bit, but the rest of the pattern not conducive for development for the time being. Not the case in the western Pacific, where we have a typhoon, I think it's called Maranti, something like that, headed towards Taiwan. Don't know if the center will go across the tip or if it'll skirt off to the south and then turn north. Hong Kong's over here, so not too much concern for Hong Kong at the moment. So this will be a fairly close call for Taiwan itself. Taipei up here on the northern part, so far enough away from that very large metropolitan area to not cause too much trouble there. This is the Philippines here, so it's going to kind of thread this needle, so to speak. We'll certainly keep an eye on it. And it's interesting that it's developed and it's so healthy, a very strong super typhoon. You notice from the ECMWF that the Madden-Julian oscillation, the MJO, really, as right now, it's in the null phase inside the circle. So there's no appreciable MJO activity anywhere in the world, yet we have this enormous area. And you can see here, huge area of upper-level anticyclonic flow, allowing the outflow from this system to just come on out very efficiently, counterclockwise at the surface, clockwise in the upper atmosphere, fanning those winds away from the center and yet no large-scale upward motion, and there it is. We have a powerful system in the Pacific, even one in the eastern Pacific with Orlean, and the Atlantic Basin remains kind of like, so go figure. Great again for coastal interest, but kind of makes you wonder what's going on with the Atlantic, that things are kind of anemic when the background state seems to be fairly favorable. I don't know. We still have a lot of hurricane season to go, however, so don't let your guard down. Usually later in the month of September, things start to shift climatologically more towards the western Atlantic and the Caribbean. And so you never know. Water temperature is still there and very much on the warm side, so you have to be ready. Nothing to worry about this week, however, so that's great news. Have a good rest of your week ahead. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com and, of course, Hurricane Pro and HD. Let's talk again on Wednesday and then again on Friday.